This is the camera I have wanted ever since its original announcement in 2014, and now, after a decade, I finally did it. When I was first starting out in content and production, the dream camera was the A7S. Canon had shown the world what DSLR filmmaking could do, and the Panasonic GH line was just coming out as a workhorse for people like me. But Sony and the A7S, that was pro tier. That was another level, and totally out of reach. But a decade later, this isn't just a want for me anymore. This is now a need. I have waited over 10 years for this moment, but I held off on unboxing so I could share that moment with you. I actually cannot tell you how excited I am to finally be doing this. It's actually kind of surreal. So I know what you're probably thinking. If you're such a professional, why didn't you already own this stuff yourself? The simple truth is, I couldn't afford an A7S, so I started out with Panasonic's GH4, then eventually the GH5S, because they were more affordable. Then, as I progressed through my career, I started to work with bigger cameras like the FS7, the FX6, the FX9. But now, with launching this channel, I needed a newer kit, something stronger that I could rely on, and unfortunately, the GH5S just doesn't cut it anymore. If I'm going to be creating regular content for this channel, then I need the process to be as smooth as possible. Which leads me to my first point. Why this camera? Firstly, the most obvious point, shooting esports events in dark stadiums is not easy. The A7S series has always been the king of low light performance. Yes, the GH5 was fine for low light, but this is on another level. So with that in mind, I'm going to do a test at the end of the video to just see how high we can take the ISO and keep it relatively usable. Okay, this one was a huge reason for me. In my professional work, I have never trusted autofocus. It's kind of like a golden rule, you just don't trust autofocus. It's taboo to even talk about. Until Sony changed the game again. And now their autofocus is so good that even I trust it. The GH5S with the Sigma 1835 that I'm shooting on right now, gorgeous combo, but no autofocus. And when you're filming yourself like this, that can be a bit of a problem. I've had to stop my aperture down just to stay in focus, which means I lose that shallow depth of field, which is not ideal. And when I'm using the gimbal, that reliable autofocus frees me up to actually focus on my own movements, not whether or not my shot's still in focus. That's enough waiting. I want to get my hands on the camera itself. It feels so much different when it's actually your camera. Oh my God, look at it. I don't even want to take it out of the bag. Oh my God, look at it, it's gorgeous. Oh my God! Look at that. That grip is so ergonomic. The GH5's got quite a chunky grip to hold, and it can feel quite weighty, but this feels just nice. I want to know what the weight feels like when the lens is attached. Oh my God, the size of the sensor. Again, it's not things you notice when it's higher stuff. Actually, having your own and getting some hands-on time. Oh, that first clip. God, this doesn't feel anywhere near as heavy as the GH5 with the Sigma. Wow, this feels so cool. Holding this in my hand has made this whole thing that we're doing here feel very real. I shoot handheld a lot. IBIS, or in-body image stabilization, just helps to keep your handheld shots looking a bit smoother without the need of something like a tripod or a gimbal, which when you're running and gunning can be very handy. Now you might be thinking, well, I'll just use a tripod or a gimbal when I need a steady shot. And I think you should when the shot calls for it. However, I think using a tripod can be a bit too rigid and a gimbal can be a bit artificial. IBIS helps me stay agile while still getting smooth footage. To be clear, it doesn't replace those tools, but it does help fill a gap when you're in a rush. Now, a fourth point may not be a massive deal to everyone, but if you care about color grading, this is a big one. The dynamic range and the 10-bit color that the A7S III captures is just fantastic. And what that essentially means is that it can see the tiniest changes of colors, and it can show all the detail you want in the shadows without having to sacrifice your details in your highlights, which gives me more information in the grade, gives me a bit of wiggle room for mistakes, and it gives more depth to my footage. If you want to know more detail about any of the stuff I've spoken about today, or about the GH5S versus the A7S III, then just let me know in the comments. I'm sold. This is a definite upgrade for me. But there is one thing left to answer, and it's something that I always go searching through YouTube for. What is the highest ISO I can reliably use when shooting video without losing quality? Every time I look on YouTube, all I see is people testing every ISO increment right up to 400,000. I just want to know how far I can push this thing before the image turns to mush. So I'm going to put an end to that with a definitive answer right now. It's 12,800, but you can push it to 25,600 before the noise starts to get too noticeable. There. It's that easy. This is just the beginning. I've got more kit on the way, I've got more tests, and more real-world production insight coming. So, if you're thinking about upgrading, or you just want to see how this performs in the wild, then hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.